The unexpected encounter, Jason stood in the grand hall of the palace, adjusting the princess's crown as she gazed out the large, ornate windows. Her presence was commanding, even as she remained silent. The entire room seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the very walls of the palace were aware of her power. But Jason wasn't looking at her as the future ruler of an alien empire. He was focused on the delicate crown in his hands, making sure every jewel was perfectly in place. Cyrilla, the princess of the Velithian people, was unlike any woman Jason had ever met. Her long, dark hair cascaded over her shoulders like liquid midnight, and her eyes shimmered with an intensity that could cut through steel. She was beautiful, no doubt, but Jason knew better than to be captivated by her looks. She was royalty unreachable, untouchable. He'd been assigned to work in the palace for months, and in all that time he had learned to keep his distance. The princess's life was filled with politics, duties, and constant expectations. Jason was just a human, a servant, and he knew his place. He'd spent his days doing menial tasks, cleaning, serving, and carrying out whatever was required of him. But today, the task was different. He had been called to fix the princess's crown before an important royal ceremony. As Jason carefully adjusted the crown's placement on Cyrilla's head, he couldn't help but notice how still she was. It was as if she wasn't just a person, but an embodiment of an entire empire, immovable, regal, and perfect in every way. Yet there was something in her expression that seemed to hint at a quiet sadness, a burden she carried deep inside. "Is it to your liking, princess?" Jason asked, keeping his voice respectful but distant. Cyrilla turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his for the briefest moment. Jason's heart skipped a beat, and for a split second, he forgot to breathe. Her gaze was intense, as if she were seeing him for the first time. Jason couldn't look away. She was just a few inches away, yet it felt like an eternity. "Yes," she replied softly, her voice almost a whisper. "It's perfect. Thank you." Jason swallowed, his heart racing. He was just about to step back when Cyrilla's next words stopped him cold. "Do you love me, human?" Jason's hands froze mid-motion. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest. Her words hung in the air like a thick fog, and for a moment he couldn't process them. It wasn't just the shock of the question, but the way she had said, so calmly, so matter-of-factly, as though it was a simple, everyday question. He forced himself to look at her, his throat tight. Her expression remained unreadable, her eyes dark and intense. She wasn't smiling, and there was no hint of playfulness in her voice. It was just a question, simple and direct. But Jason felt the weight of it like a heavy stone pressing against his chest. "Pardon me, princess?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't know how to respond. He wasn't sure if she was being serious, or if this was some kind of test. But the way she had looked at him, he couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a game. Cyrilla's eyes flickered for a moment, almost as if she were contemplating something, before her gaze softened. "It's a simple question, human. Do you love me?" Jason took a step back, not sure how to respond. He wasn't even sure why she would ask such a thing. He had always been just a servant, someone who cleaned the palace, who fixed things and made sure the princess's world ran smoothly. He was no one special. His life was nothing compared to hers. He looked down at the crown in his hands, still, holding it, trying to steady his breathing. I don't understand, princess. You're the ruler of an entire empire. I'm just a servant." Cyrilla tilted her head slightly, studying him as though she were reading the very depths of his soul. "And yet, you serve me. You spend your days helping me, caring for my needs. Doesn't that mean something to you? Don't you feel something, at least?" Jason felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling he didn't know how to describe. It wasn't love, not in the way he thought she meant it. But there was something in her presence, something that made him want to protect her, to do whatever it took to make her happy. It was foolish, he knew. He was human. She was a princess. They were from different worlds. I'm not sure what. You mean princess, Jason replied, his voice strained. He wanted to say more, to explain himself, but the words wouldn't come. He had been around Cyrilla long enough to see the weight of the crown she wore, the responsibility that seemed to bend her every action. Yet she had always kept her distance until now. Cyrilla stepped closer, her presence filling the room like a storm on the horizon. She reached out, her hand gently brushing against his arm, and for a moment Jason felt his breath catch in his throat. You are more than just a servant to me, she said, her voice barely audible. You've been with me through everything. You've never once faltered. So I ask you again, do you love me, human? Jason's heart raced as the words echoed. In his mind, how could he answer? He had always been loyal, always been there for her, but love? What did that even mean in the world they shared? Could someone like him, a mere human, love someone like her, an alien princess bound by duty and power? For a moment, everything seemed to stand still, as if time itself were waiting for his response. And as he met her eyes, Jason realized something. His answer, whatever it might be, would change everything. The alien princess, the moments that followed Cyrilla's question were filled with a heavy silence, a quiet that stretched between them like a fragile thread. Jason had never imagined himself in this position, standing before a princess of a powerful alien empire, holding her crown in his hands, caught in her gaze. He'd known her as an unapproachable figure, someone whose beauty and status set her apart from the rest of the universe. Yet in that brief moment, everything had shifted. Cyrilla didn't break the silence. She simply waited, her eyes never leaving his, as though she could see deep into his soul. Jason swallowed hard, his heart still pounding. He had never seen her this close, this human. The princess, the leader of the Velithian Empire, the one who commanded armies and held the future of her people in her hands, was now standing before him, vulnerable in a way he hadn't expected. Jason could see the subtle shift in her expression. There was no smugness, no regal air about her at this moment, just a quiet, almost somber curiosity. Her beauty, which had always seemed untouchable, now seemed like a veil hiding something deeper. I'm sorry, princess, Jason said, finding his voice, still unsure of how to handle the situation. I don't know how to answer you. Cyrilla tilted her head slightly, her eyes softening. It's a simple question, Jason, she said, her voice calm and steady. Do you love me? Jason shifted uncomfortably, looking away from her gaze for a moment. The princess's question had rattled him more than he cared to admit. Love wasn't something he had considered, especially not with someone like Cyrilla. He was a human, a servant in her palace. She was an alien princess, a leader, and an icon of power. How could someone like him possibly think of love with someone so far removed from his world? He felt like a fool, standing there holding her crown, unsure of the words he should say. But the truth was, her question was making him see her in a new light. Cyrilla wasn't just a ruler. She wasn't just an untouchable figure on a pedestal. She was real, flawed, vulnerable, and human in her own way. It struck him harder than he expected. I'm not sure what you mean, Jason admitted, his voice quieter now. I've always been here for you, princess. I do my job because I respect you. But love, I don't know if I can. Cyrilla interrupted him, her voice gentle, but with a hint of something more, something raw. You are loyal, Jason. I see that. And I've always appreciated your dedication, your quiet strength. But loyalty and love, they are different things, aren't they? She took a step closer, the distance between them closing. It's not just about duty. It's about something deeper, something that exists even when there is no command, no expectation. Jason's breath caught in his chest as she stepped into his personal space. The air between them was charged, and for the first time, he found himself wondering if he could ever see her as anything other than the powerful, untouchable princess. She was so much more than that. But how could he, someone so ordinary, ever reach her? I know you've never asked for anything, Cyrilla continued, her voice softening. But I've watched you, Jason. I've seen how you've cared for me, how you've always been by my side. And I've wondered, could there be more? Could you ever look at me, not as a servant to a princess, but as someone you might? She hesitated, then said the words quietly, care for? Jason's heart pounded. He had never heard her speak like this before. Her walls, always so firm and unyielding, seemed to be crumbling before him. She was asking him not just about his feelings, but about what it meant to be human, to love, to care for someone without the weight of duty or expectation. Jason faltered, looking down at his hands, the crown still held loosely between his fingers. What could he say? How could he express what he was feeling? The words seemed impossible, trapped in his throat. But then, something inside him shifted a clarity he hadn't known was there. He met her eyes again, seeing the vulnerability behind the strength, the uncertainty beneath the regality. For the first time, he saw her as more than just a princess, a leader, or someone out of his reach. He saw her as Cyrilla, the woman who had asked him a question no one had ever dared to ask him before. I care about you, princess, Jason said, his voice steadying. I don't know what love is supposed to feel like, but I do know that I've always wanted to protect you, to be here for you. Maybe that's not the same thing, but I can't ignore what's here between us. Cyrilla's eyes softened, and for a moment she looked almost relieved. That's enough, she whispered. That's enough for me. Jason's heart raced, but there was something comforting in her words. He still didn't fully understand what was happening between them, but in that moment, he realized that they were no longer just a servant and a princess. They were two people, caught in a situation neither had expected, but both were beginning to understand each other in ways that went beyond power or status. Cyrilla's voice broke the silence again. There's something I haven't told you, Jason. Something that could change everything. You see, my crown isn't just a symbol of my status. It's also a key to a power that could alter the balance of the universe. And I need someone I can trust. Someone who isn't just loyal to me as a ruler, but someone who truly understands. What's at stake? Jason felt a chill run down his spine. The crown, a symbol of power, was more than just decoration. It was tied to something far greater. And now, with his confession, Jason realized that his world had just shifted once again. He wasn't just a servant anymore. He was involved in something far beyond his understanding. Cyrilla's eyes met his once more, a quiet intensity filling the room. I need your help, Jason. I need you to understand the truth. But first, you have to decide, are you ready to follow me, wherever this path may lead? Jason took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. The journey ahead would be anything but simple. But as he looked into her eyes, he knew one thing. For sure, he wasn't ready to walk away from whatever lay ahead. The unlikely, on the air between Jason and Cyrilla had shifted. What had started as a quiet exchange had now blossomed into something more, something neither of them could ignore. The princess, who had once seemed so untouchable, now stood before him as an equal in a way. Her vulnerability had cracked through the regal walls she'd built around herself, and Jason felt that same vulnerability stirring in him. But there was no time for either of them to dwell on what had just happened. A soft, almost imperceptible hum echoed through the hall as the Defiance, the last human warship, sat in orbit above the planet. Jason had known there was more to Cyrilla's story, and the crown, with its hidden power, was a piece he couldn't ignore. "I need to show you something," Cyrilla said, her voice low but urgent. Jason nodded, still reeling from their conversation, but knowing that the weight of her words was heavier than any emotional connection they'd just started to explore. The princess led him through the corridors of the palace, the walls adorned with Velithian tapestries and intricate artwork depicting the Empire's glorious history. Jason could feel the eyes of her guards on him, their watchful gazes silently noting every step. But today, he felt like he was moving in a different world, one where the line between servant and princess blurred. They reached a private chamber, deep within the palace. A large obsidian pedestal stood in the center of the room, its surface smooth and polished. The crown, which had seemed like just a piece of jewelry, now seemed far more important, far more powerful. "This is the heart of my empire," Cyrilla said quietly, gesturing to the pedestal. "And it's also the source of everything that has kept my people in power." Jason approached the pedestal cautiously. The crown sat there, gleaming under the soft light, its jewels catching the glow of the room. But it was different. Now there was something about it that felt alive, as though it were waiting for someone to activate it. "I thought it was just a symbol," Jason admitted, glancing back at Serie la. Crie la single quotes S expression was grave. "What it appears to be to most, yes, but it's not. The crown holds the power to reshape the galaxy. It was created centuries ago by the ancestors of my people, forged in a time of war, designed to protect our empire from destruction. The truth is, I can't rule without it. It's not just a symbol, it's a key to maintaining my people's place in the universe." Jason stared at the crown, his mind racing. He had never thought of the crown as anything more than a piece of royalty, a mark of Cyrilla's power. But now, in the silence of the room, it felt far more dangerous. "And you're asking me to help you with this?" Jason asked, his voice hesitant but steady. Cyrilla stepped forward, her voice low but unwavering. "I've been given this power, yes, but it's a burden. And the time is coming when I will need to either use it or lose it. The enemies who seek to control the galaxy are watching. They know about the crown, and they will stop at nothing to claim it for themselves." Jason felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just about loyalty anymore. It was about survival. The fate of not just Cyrilla's empire, but the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. "I don't understand," Jason admitted, turning his eyes from the crown to Cyrilla. "What do you need from me?" Cyrilla's gaze softened, and for a moment, Jason could see the weight of the empire on her shoulders. The power of an entire people rested with her, but she was far from invincible. "Your help," she said quietly, "comes in many forms. The truth is, I can't use the crown alone. It requires a bond, something that goes beyond loyalty, beyond duty, a trust, a connection. And if we don't form that bond, the power of the crown will be lost to us forever." Jason's breath caught in his throat. A bond? He had heard of ancient powers, of rituals and prophecies, but never like this. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something monumental, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to take the plunge. Cyrilla nodded. "The crown responds only to those who have both the strength to wield it and the heart to understand it. And if we're going to fight the Zaylor, we need that strength. We need to form a bond that can awaken the full power of this relic." Jason was silent for a moment, processing her words. The idea of using the crown, this powerful artifact, seemed almost beyond belief. He was just a servant, a human with no special skills or training. How could he possibly help her wield the power that had shaped an entire empire? "I don't know if I'm the right person for this," Jason said quietly, his gaze fixed on the crown. "You're the princess. Cyrilla, you have all the power of your people at your command. Why me? Because you've shown me something I never expected to see, Cyrilla said, her voice filled with emotion. You see me as I am, not as a ruler or a symbol. You've been here for me, not because it was your duty, but because you care. And that is the key. This bond, it can't be forced. It must be something real, something genuine. Jason felt a deep warmth in his chest, the weight of her words settling in. He had always known that his loyalty to Cyrilla went beyond mere duty, but now he understood that it was something more. The connection between them was not just about the crown or the empire. It was about trust, about finding strength in each other, even in the face of impossible odds. Okay, Jason said, his voice firm, though he still didn't fully understand the depths of what he was agreeing to. I'll help you, whatever it takes. Cyrilla smiled, a soft and sincere smile, and placed her hand on his arm. Thank you, Jason. Together we'll unlock the crown's power. And with it, we will save everything we've fought for. As the weight of the task settled on both of them, Jason knew that their lives along with the fate of the galaxy were about to change forever. They were no longer just servant and princess. They were allies in a battle that could alter the course of history. And as they stood there, staring at the crown, Jason realized that he was no longer just helping Cyrilla. He was part of something much larger, something that would demand everything from him. The journey ahead would be dangerous, filled with enemies and uncertainty. But one thing was clear. There was no turning back now. Secrets of the crown. The Defiance was drifting silently in the cold emptiness of space, a lone beacon of humanity's last hope. The ship had taken a beating in its last battle, but Jason knew it was far from finished, just like him. And just like Cyrilla. The connection between them had deepened in ways he hadn't expected, but now, more than ever, he felt the weight of what they were about to face. He wasn't just the servant anymore, he was part of something far larger, something that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. Cyrilla's footsteps echoed softly in the corridor as she approached Jason in the ship's briefing room. She looked different now, less like the distant princess he'd always known, and more like someone he could fight beside. But there was something more behind her eyes, something that Jason couldn't ignore. I know it's a lot to ask, Jason, Cyrilla began, her voice steady, but with a tinge of uncertainty. The crown, it holds a power beyond anything we've faced. But we need to understand it completely if we're going to defeat the Zaylor. I can't do this alone. Jason stood up from the table, where he'd been poring over the star maps and data on the crown. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place, but the picture still felt incomplete. The crown, Cyrilla's family heirloom, was more than just a royal symbol. It was a key, one that could reshape the power dynamics of the galaxy. But at what cost? You said the crown's power is tied to a bond, Jason said, his voice low. A connection. I don't know what that means, Cyrilla. You're asking me to help you unlock something that could destroy entire worlds. How do we even begin to understand it? Cyrilla's gaze softened as she walked over to the nearby holographic display, which projected the glowing image of the crown. The intricate design of the crown seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, each jewel emitting a faint glow that shifted like stars in a distant galaxy. It was beautiful, yes, but also terrifying in its quiet power. I don't fully understand it either, Cyrilla admitted. My ancestors built this relic long ago, during a time of war. The crown was created to protect my people, but it also has the ability to control the energy of entire systems that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. But its true power lies in one thing: the bond between the wearer and the one who can unlock its potential. A bond formed by trust, loyalty, and yes, love. Jason's chest tightened. The word love still felt foreign between them, especially given their starkly different places in the galaxy's hierarchy. But Cyrilla wasn't asking for romantic love. She was asking for something deeper, something that went beyond mere affection or duty. "This is bigger than both of us," Jason said quietly, his mind racing with the possibilities. "If we use this power, there's no going back." Cyrilla turned to face him, her expression hardening with determination. "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But if we don't act now, the sailor will overrun everything. They're already coming for the crown. If they get their hands on it, they will become unstoppable." Jason met her gaze, the weight of her words sinking in. The Zaylar were ruthless. They had already decimated countless civilizations, and Earth had only barely managed to hold them off. But the Zaylar had underestimated humanity, just as they had underestimated Cyrilla. She wasn't just a princess, she was a force to be reckoned with. "So, what's our next move?" Jason asked, trying to push aside the fear that gripped his chest. Cyrilla moved toward the center of the room, where a large, ancient-looking artifact lay on a pedestal. It was a an encrypted map that would lead them to the lost vault of the Velithians, where the full potential of the crown could be unlocked. It was a place that had been forgotten by all but a few, and Cyrilla had uncovered its location after years of searching. "The map will take us to the Vault of Eternity," Cyrilla explained, touching the edge of the display. "It's hidden deep within the Velithian homeworld. No one has entered it for centuries, not since my ancestors sealed it away to protect the crown's power. But the key to unlocking the crown's full potential is there. It's where we can find the answers we need." Jason looked at the map, his mind still grappling with the enormity of the situation. He had been thrown into this world of ancient powers and galactic politics without warning, but now, with Cyrilla, it felt like they were on the edge of something world-changing, something that could either save them or destroy them. "And what happens when we get to the vault?" Jason asked, his voice steady despite the swirl of uncertainty in his chest. Cyrilla's eyes darkened, her expression becoming somber. "Once we unlock the full power of the crown, we will have the ability to alter the course of the war. We'll be able to challenge the Zaylar's most powerful weapons, but we can't do it alone. We need more allies. We need the galaxy to stand with us." Jason nodded, his mind now fully focused on the task ahead. The journey would be dangerous, and there was no guarantee they would succeed. But one thing was certain: he wasn't going to back down. Cyrilla was depending on him, and humanity's fate rested on their shoulders. As the Defiance powered up and set course for the Velithian homeworld, Jason felt the weight of the galaxy bearing down on him. The Vault of Eternity was their only chance to end the Zaylar threat, but it would require everything from him, from both of them. "I'm with you, Cyrilla," Jason said, his voice firm. "No matter what happens, we'll do this together." Cyrilla looked at him, her expression softer than before. "Thank you, Jason. Together, we'll either save the galaxy or be remembered as the ones who tried." The ship's engines hummed to life, and as they moved toward the unknown, Jason knew there was no turning back. They were on the verge of unlocking a power that could change the galaxy's destiny, but with it came the risk of losing everything. The final battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin. The betrayal, the journey to the Vault of Eternity had not been easy. The Defiance had endured countless battles, making its way deeper into enemy territory. Cyrilla and Jason had become a force to be reckoned with, working together to uncover secrets that had been hidden for centuries. But now, as they approached the heart of the Velithian homeworld, everything felt too still, too quiet. Jason stood at the bridge of the Defiance, staring out at the approaching planet. His thoughts were scattered, as if the weight of everything they had been through was starting to catch up to him. The crown, the relic they were about to unlock, held the key to everything. But Jason had begun to wonder, was it truly worth the cost? Would they be able to control its power, or would they end up becoming the very thing they had been fighting against? Captain, the tactical officer said, breaking Jason from his thoughts. We've entered the Velithian system. Sensors are picking up movement on the surface. It's possible we've been detected. Jason's hand tightened on the armrest of his chair. How many ships? Hard to tell, but it looks like a small fleet. Nothing we can't handle, but we should be cautious, the officer replied. Cyrilla entered the bridge, her face set. In its usual mask of calm, but Jason could see the tension in her eyes. She had been silent most of the journey, lost in her own thoughts. He could sense that something was weighing on her, and it wasn't just the crown. There was something more, something she hadn't told him. We're close, Cyrilla said, her voice steady. I've never been this deep into the Velithian system. The Vault of Eternity is located beneath the ancient city of Lauren, hidden in the catacombs. But it's not just the vault we need to worry about. There are guardians. Jason turned to face her. Guardians? Cyrilla nodded. My people placed them there long ago to protect the crown. They were designed to ensure that only those worthy could access the vault's power. But we've also made enemies. The Zayler are not the only threat we face. Jason felt a chill crawl up his spine. What are you telling me? Cyrilla's expression hardened. I don't know who to trust anymore. Jason, there are factions within my own empire who would see the crown's power used for their own gain. And if they found out that we're headed to the vault. Her words hung in the air like a heavy weight, and Jason suddenly realized just how high the stakes had become. They were no longer just fighting the Zayler. They were fighting for the crown itself, and there were those within Cyrilla's own empire who would kill to possess it. I'm with you, Cyrilla, Jason said, his voice steady. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Cyrilla looked at him, her gaze filled with something that seemed almost like gratitude. But then, as if a thought had just occurred to her, she looked away, her eyes clouding over with doubt. We'll need to be prepared for anything, Cyrilla continued, her tone more serious than ever. The Guardians are the least of our worries. There are people who would stop at nothing to keep the crown out of the right hands. We'll be walking into a trap. Jason swallowed hard. You mean there's someone inside your empire working against us? Cyrilla nodded. Yes, and I think I know who it is. Before Jason could ask anything further, the ship's sensors flared. The tactical officer's voice broke through the tension. Captain, we're being hailed. It's a transmission from the surface of the planet. Put it through, Jason ordered. The screen flickered to life, revealing a familiar face one. Jason had seen only in passing, but one Cyrilla knew well. The man's sharp features and calculating eyes betrayed his true nature. He was one of Cyrilla's most trusted advisors until now. Princess Cyrilla, the man said, his voice smooth but filled with an underlying menace. I must admit, I'm impressed you've made it this far. Jason's heart sank. He could feel the air grow colder as the weight of the betrayal settled in. Cyrilla's eyes narrowed, her entire demeanor changing as she took in the sight of the man on the screen. Varric, Cyrilla said quietly, the name escaping her lips like a curse. I should have known you were behind this. Varric smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. You always were too trusting, Princess. That's why I'm here now, to stop you from making a grave mistake. Jason stood silently by Cyrilla's side, trying to process the shock of what was happening. Varric, one of Cyrilla's closest advisors, had been working against her from the start. He had betrayed her, and now he was using his position to stop them from reaching the vault. You've been working with the Zayler, Cyrilla said, her voice steady but filled with anger. You want the crown for yourself. You want to use its power to control my people. Varric's smile widened. Not just your people, Princess, the entire galaxy. I've been working with the Zayler for years, and now the crown is mine. You've led me straight to it? Jason's blood ran cold. The realization hit him hard. This wasn't just about the crown anymore. This was a fight for the very future of the galaxy. Varek, with his treachery, had set them up. And the Zayler were only a small part of the threat now. "You won't get away with this," Cyrilla said, her voice rising with fury. "Oh, but I already have, Princess," Varek replied coldly. "Your crown is already in my hands, and the Vault of Eternity is closer than you think. I'll be waiting for you." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Jason and Cyrilla standing in stunned silence. Cyrilla turned to him, her face pale, but her eyes burning with resolve. "We've been betrayed. Varek has the crown. He's taken it to the vault. If we don't stop him now, everything is lost." Jason didn't hesitate. "Then we'll stop him, no matter what it takes." With no time to waste, Cyrilla and Jason readied themselves for the most dangerous mission of their lives. The Defiance was already on a collision course with Varek's location, and there was no turning back. They had to move quickly. If they didn't, the galaxy itself would fall under the control of a man who would do anything to wield the crown's power dot as they prepared to face Varek. Jason knew this was just the beginning. The crown was the key to everything. But the real battle wasn't just for the relic. It was for the very future of the galaxy dot, and Jason wasn't about to let anyone, especially Varek, take that future away. The choice, the Defiance cut through the cold, dark expanse of space, its engines humming with the last reserves of power. Jason stood beside Cyrilla, staring out at the distant planet below. The Velithian homeworld loomed ahead, but the anticipation felt heavier than ever. The betrayal of Varek still hung over them, like a dark cloud casting a shadow over everything. He had taken the crown, and now, with its power in his hands, he was poised to control not just the Velithian Empire, but the entire galaxy. Had always been certain of her path. Her life had been defined by duty, responsibility, and the weight of a crown that had shaped her every decision. But now, Jason could see the cracks in that certainty, the doubts creeping in. She had trusted Varek, and he had betrayed her. Worse still, he had manipulated the power of the crown, and if Jason and Cyrilla couldn't stop him, everything they had fought for would be lost. "We're almost there," Cyrilla said, her voice low but steady. "Varek has already reached the Vault of Eternity. The crown's power is unlocking. We have to hurry, or the galaxy will fall into chaos." Jason nodded, his mind racing. This wasn't just about stopping Varek anymore. It was about something far greater, the balance of power in the galaxy. If Varek could unlock the full potential of the crown, no one would be able to stop him. The Zayler, the Empire, every other faction, none of them would stand a chance. "What do we do when we get there?" Jason asked, his eyes fixed on the approaching planet. "We don't even know what kind of defenses are waiting for us." Cyrilla's face was set with determination. "We'll figure it out when we get there. We don't have time for planning. We'll have to trust each other." Jason glanced at her, surprised by the finality in her voice. For the first time, she seemed like a person unsure of her next move. The power of the crown, and everything it symbolized, was in Varek's hands now. But it wasn't just about reclaiming the crown. It was about restoring balance, saving the galaxy from total destruction. Cyrilla turned to him, her gaze intense. "Jason, I need you to understand something. The crown doesn't just have power over our empire. It can control the flow of life in the galaxy itself. If Varek uses it, the consequences will be far worse than the Zayler ever could have dreamed." Jason could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him. The crown wasn't just an artifact. It was a weapon capable of reshaping the universe itself. And if Varek had control of it, there was no telling what he might do. He had already proven that he was willing to betray anyone to get what he wanted. "We can't let him win," Jason said, his voice hardening. "We stop him, no matter the cost." Cyrilla nodded. I knew you'd say that. The Defiance entered the atmosphere of the Velithian homeworld, descending rapidly toward the ruins of the ancient city of Lorn, where the vault of eternity was hidden. The city, once a shining symbol of the Velithian people's power, now lay in ruins, its once grand buildings reduced to crumbling stone. The vault, a place of legend, was buried deep beneath the city, sealed away for centuries to protect the crown's secrets. But now, with Varric in control, the vault was the key to unlocking the galaxy's future. As the Defiance landed, the crew scrambled to prepare for their descent. Jason felt the weight of the moment pressing on him. He wasn't just facing an enemy, he was facing a betrayal that ran deeper than he could have imagined. Cyrilla had trusted Varric, and now they were going to have to fight their way into the vault to stop him from unlocking its power. We have to hurry, Cyrilla said, her voice urgent as they made their way toward the exit. Varric's already inside. The Guardians are waking up. Jason's eyes narrowed. He had heard of the Guardians, the ancient protectors of the vault, programmed to defend it from anyone who sought to misuse its power. They were no ordinary beings. They were a force, designed to be as unstoppable as the power they guarded. I'm ready, Jason said, his voice steady. Let's end this. As they approached the entrance to the vault, the ground beneath them shook. It was faint at first, but then the tremors grew stronger, and Jason realized that they weren't alone. The Guardians were awake, and they were coming for them. We need to move faster, Cyrilla shouted, pulling him toward a hidden entrance to the vault. The two of them ran through the ruins, narrowly avoiding the massive, hulking Guardians that had emerged from the ground, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. The vault's power had activated, and the Guardians were determined to protect it, no matter the cost. Jason's heart pounded as he and Cyrilla made their way deeper into the vault's ancient corridors. The walls were lined with strange alien symbols, and the air was thick with the hum of energy. He had no idea what was waiting for them inside. But one thing was clear: if they didn't reach the heart of the vault soon, Varric would unleash the crown's full power, and it would be too late. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the corridor. Varric's voice filled the air, cold and filled with triumph. You're too late, princess, he called, his voice echoing through the vault. The crown's power is mine now. The galaxy will bow to me. Cyrilla's eyes flashed with anger, but there was no hesitation in her voice. We'll see. About that, Varric. You won't control the galaxy. Not while I still stand. Jason felt a surge of adrenaline as they approached the final chamber, the throne room of the vault. And there, standing before them, was Varric, his hand resting on the crown. The relic glowed with an unnatural energy, and Jason could see the madness in Varric's eyes. He was on the edge of something terrible, something powerful. You don't understand, Cyrilla, Varric said, his voice low and filled with menace. The crown is mine. The galaxy will kneel before me. But Cyrilla wasn't backing down. No, this ends now. As they prepared for the final confrontation, Jason knew one thing for certain. They had to stop Varric. If they didn't, the galaxy would never be the same. The final battle for the crown had begun, and Jason and Cyrilla would fight to the very end. Ask ChatGPT. The final stand. The chamber of the vault was vast and imposing, its high ceilings stretching into shadows. Ancient carvings lined the walls, telling stories of an empire long gone, yet still remembered in whispers. In the center of the room, bathed in the eerie glow of the crown's energy, Varric stood, a twisted smile on his face as he grasped the relic. His fingers traced the jewels, as if savoring the power surging through him. Jason's heart hammered in his chest as he and Cyrilla entered the chamber. The throne room had become a place of intense energy charged with the crown's power, and Varric was drawing that power closer with every moment. The crown, once a symbol of unity and leadership for the Velithian people, had now become a weapon in Varric's hands. "You should have stayed out of my way, Cyrilla," Varric sneered, his eyes flashing with a dangerous light. "But now that I have the crown, there's nothing you can do. The galaxy is mine to control." Cyrilla's eyes narrowed, her hand instinctively moving to the hilt of the ceremonial dagger she carried at her side. The years of training, the duty she had upheld as princess, all of it had led to this moment. The crown was more than just a source of power. It was a legacy, and she would not let it fall into the hands of a traitor. "We're not here to negotiate, Varric," Cyrilla's voice was steady, but Jason could hear the underlying fury in it. "You've betrayed me, my people, and everything the Velithians stand for. And now, you'll face the consequences." Jason stepped forward, his stance firm. He didn't understand everything about the crown, about the power it held, but one thing was clear. Varric's intentions were dangerous. He had to be stopped before the entire galaxy was torn apart. "Varric, listen to me," Jason said, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. "You can't control this power. It will destroy you, just like it destroyed the ones who came before you. The galaxy doesn't need a tyrant. It needs leaders who will work together, who will fight for peace, not for control." Varric's smile faltered for a moment, but then his expression hardened. "You think I care about peace? You, a mere human, telling me about what the galaxy needs? You've seen nothing. Power is everything. With the crown, I will reshape everything. I will bring order my order. No one will stand against me." The air in the chamber crackled with energy, the power of the crown reacting to Varric's words. The guardians, those ancient protectors of the vault, stood still in the shadows, watching silently. But Jason could see the tension in their mechanical forms. They weren't entirely under Varric's control. The power of the crown was wild, untamed, and the guardians were beginning to stir. "I won't let you do this," Cyrilla said, her voice now cold, resolved. "The crown isn't just a weapon, it's a test of the heart. You failed that test, Varric. You failed to see what really matters." Varric let out a harsh laugh, gripping the crown tighter, as if trying to draw more power from it. "You think you can stop me? You, a princess with no army? I've already won. The crown is mine." Jason could see the madness in his eyes now. Varric wasn't just power-hungry. He had become consumed by the relic's influence. The crown's power was turning him into something unrecognizable. It wasn't just about ruling the galaxy anymore. It was about bending the universe to his will. Jason took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Cyrilla, we can't let him keep the crown. If we don't act now, the galaxy will be doomed." Cyrilla nodded, her eyes filled with a fire Jason hadn't seen before. She was the princess, but in this moment, she was something more. She was the protector of her people, of everything that mattered. And Jason knew that if they didn't stop Varric, there would be no going back. As if on cue, the crown pulsed with energy, and the guardians began to move. The ancient protectors, part machine, part legend, shuddered to life, their massive forms coming forward with purpose. But instead of attacking, they circled the room as if they were waiting for something. The crown had a will of its own, and it was reacting to the chaos that Varric was creating. "This is it," Jason muttered to himself. "We either win here, or we lose everything." With a swift motion, Cyrilla reached for the ceremonial dagger. At her side, and Jason followed her lead, drawing his own weapon. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. "Varric!" Cyrilla shouted, her voice echoing through the chamber. "You'll never control the galaxy through fear. If you use the crown this way, it will destroy you. It will destroy everything." Varric turned to face her, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You think I'm afraid of destruction? I'm ready to sacrifice everything for power." Nothing else matters. Cyrilla's eyes softened for a moment, as if she were seeing the man she had once trusted. But that moment was brief, and it was replaced by resolve. "And you've already lost, Varric." With a single fluid motion, Cyrilla lunged forward, her dagger aimed at the heart of the crone. As her blade connected with the relic, a wave of energy exploded from the crown, sending both Cyrilla and Jason stumbling backward. The Guardians roared in response, their massive forms shifting into combat positions. Jason's mind raced. The crown was reacting, but it wasn't just fighting back. It was trying to decide who would wield it. Cyrilla had struck a critical blow, but they had only moments before Varric regained control. The chamber filled with energy as the crown began to glow brighter, its power surging wildly. Cyrilla rose to her feet, blood dripping from a gash on her arm, but her expression was unwavering. "Jason, we have to end this," she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "We can't let him take control." Together, Jason and Cyrilla made their move. The Guardians advanced, but Jason's instincts kicked in. With one final desperate push, they launched themselves at Varric, fighting against the tide of power that was threatening to crush them. It was now or never. The galaxies. Fate rested in their hands. The end